Hey everyone, welcome back to the Trendcrusher podcast. I can't believe it's over a month that I released an episode, and yeah, what a month it's been. I mean, the month started off with, Back to the Beginning, which was a farewell show to Black Sabbath and Ozzy Osbourne, and what a way the month ended with the passing away of Ozzy Osbourne. I mean, I think everyone who watched that live stream, whether it was even in the form of shorts or even longer form videos, you could feel the emotion. And yeah, it was not just those at the concert in Birmingham, but even those of us here in Mumbai watching the live stream. What a career, what a journey. Rest in power, Ozzy. On the other end, in addition to work being really hectic, I've been working with a band here in Mumbai named Begho. They put out their single at the start of the month, which is self-titled, and also their first EP, One. I'm glad the EP is finally out because I've been listening to these tracks ever since I started visiting them in their jam room last year. I want to say around August, September. And yeah, it's been great to kind of see the evolution of these tracks. My favorite track, if you have to put a gun to my head, is Steal from the Rich, Keep. So here it is.
a toast to those who dare. Down with the unjust, make them aware. In the darkness, through the fight, going for the sea will shine bright and steal from the rich, steal from the rich, steal from the bitch. Steal from the rich, steal from the rich, steal from the rich, steal from the rich.
And that was Steal from the Rich, Keep of Begho's, of their debut release, One. Do check it out. I'm leaving a link in the show notes. They've got some cool merch out also, t-shirts and tank tops coming soon. Link to that also in the show notes. And now for the interview on this episode. I had a chance to speak to Mike from Cryptodira, who are based out of the US. They have a new EP out, Genesis of Error. I really enjoyed the 3 tracks on this EP, and I thought more people should definitely hear about the band. So here's my chat with Mike. Hi, Mike. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, how's it going? Nice to meet you. Nice to be here.
Awesome. So since we're only doing audio and stuff, and for
Yeah.
those who haven't heard of the band, could you just introduce yourself? What do you do and stuff like that?
Yeah. So the name of the band is Cryptodira. I am Mike, and I do some of the vocals, the more high-pitched screaming vocals, as opposed to the lower, more death metal type stuff. That's Scott, and I play guitar as well.
And you guys have an EP, Genesis of Error, which is going to be out in a week from now, actually. We're talking ahead. How does it feel now? All of it's ready. You're doing press shows and stuff like that.
It's good. It's good. We so ultimately it's really the first real release that we're gonna have out since 2020, late 2020. So it's kind of more like 2021 because it's December 2020. So it feels a little more like 4 years than 5, but it's still a long time, and it's something that we talked about. Never wanted to have this kind of gap in between releases again, while the band is active, especially. And so we did get to do a lot of really cool support stuff for the last record, for the Angel of History. And that was, we got to do a full US with intervals. We got to do European tour between the Buried Me and Haken. We got to do US tour with Rollo Tomasi and the Callous Dow Boys, outside of a couple of other things like, one-off shows and stuff like that. COVID really kind of screwed that cycle up a little bit, but regardless of that, even if we were less busy than we would have liked to be, we still got to do some cool stuff. We still got to do Europe at least once during that, if not twice. I think just once. But either way, it's nice that we're going to have a new release out, and it feels like a brand new kind of fresh start. And right now we're just playing headlining shows and some smaller shows and stuff like that. But as we kind of look to gain a little bit more momentum, we hope that we can do some cool support stuff off of this. Do you know when this interview comes out?
Probably a week from now itself, around the EP release.
Okay, so by then, right around then, we're gonna announce a couple shows with Rollo Tomasi. That'll be cool, and it's a thing where we're gonna keep doing small stuff until we're able to do some bigger stuff, and bridge that to recording a full length sooner than later. Which we've already. I was just looking at new music. I know that this new EP hasn't come out yet, but I was just looking at new music yesterday. And we've got, we're looking to send 4 or 5 demos to a label, and it's a thing where we're really trying to use this as a gap more than anything, more than we are really proud of it, but it's just another step to keep getting closer to where we want to be more than anything. But it feels good that it's going to be out, and it's been nice playing shows again. We played 4 shows last week, and it was awesome. Every show was great. Like, I have no complaints. Really happy to just be back on stage.
Awesome. So lots to talk to you about, but I think let's start with like the very basic question, right? And uh, I'm just picking up from where you said you didn't want it to be a gap of so long, right? Uh, so what was the decision like? And especially considering, we're almost 5 years from the last release. What was the like genesis, or I mean, for lack of a better word, of the
Yeah.
entire EP that we're hearing right now, right? And what made you decide uh, to release it as an EP as opposed to wait longer and maybe an album? If you could kind of explain that.
Yeah. So yeah, 100%. So it was, these songs were being written for a record outside of the last song, which I've got this thing of I'm pretty infatuated with the idea of like trying to sneak one last song in before a recording session. Something that Sabbath did, like when they were recording Paranoid, they recorded Paranoid like the last day of that kind of session. And it's one thing where I try and go, let's kind of try and do a heat check of, so many records are like, the songs are being written from like a year or more onward in a lot of cases. So I like to do like we're going into the studio really soon. Let's try and bang out one that is like a lot closer to when we're actually going to this going to the studio. So that's something that I wrote. I actually wrote a short and a long version of the song. We wound up using the long version with help from the producers Greg and Chris. But in terms of it being an EP instead of a full length, we actually kind of got talked into the idea of doing an EP by management and booking agent that we were with at the time that we're actually not with anymore. But I don't think it was a bad decision at all. I don't regret it. And if it were a full length, I don't necessarily know that it would be out yet. I'd like to hope that it would be, because we've got a lot of songs written still. We, like I said, for the next record, we've got 7, 8 songs written on top of having 3, 4 demoed, and a few of those were going to be for a record. So it's a thing where like the EP itself could have been a record, but it would have been more work, and I just don't know that it would have been out yet as much as we would have liked it to be, just because of logistical, like, we funded half of we funded the recording of this record on our own, so that would have been double that on top of a bunch of other little things. So that's the long of it, and the short of it is we kind of got talked into doing an EP. And I'm not unhappy that we did one. I'm really happy with the way this came out, and the label that we're working on it with, and it gave us an opportunity to also put out on the physical release some singles that we had previously recorded, so that way they have a proper physical release as well. So that's kind of the short of it.
Okay, and since you said that, right, and I'm glad you kind of added the whole bit where the last song was actually sneaked in last minute.
Yeah.
Take me back through kind of writing the other 2 songs, right? No Monuments and The Same River Twice.
Yeah.
Why again those songs compared to the other material that you had, and how did you all kind of go about even sequencing? Because I'm very curious always, right? There are certain bands that look at it as singles, and certain bands look at it as more a cohesive thing. What was your approach?
I always look at our releases as something cohesive. So and it's actually the way that I was raised to listen to music. Like my dad, I really lucked out, and the band lucked out too, honestly, because the band doesn't exist without my dad. Like my dad, always music around the house and always records. Whether it's, he bought into the vinyl craze. Obviously, he had tons of vinyl from when he was a kid, but he always evolved with the technology. So he moved on to cassettes and had tons of cassettes. Moved on to CDs. There are thousands of CDs at my parents' house. And then bought back into the vinyl craze. Was like, it's sick. He just like I inherited this from him. The idea of like collecting physical media. You can't see from the you see on the Zoom screen. I'm in my office right now, but on all of the walls surrounding me are movies, which he was big into collecting DVDs as well. Tons of records. So it's always a cohesive thing, and he was always listening to records front to back. He would make his own mixtapes too, but he wasn't like a big like he would never like if he had Spotify or Apple Music, there's no way he would just kind of like click through songs. You know what I mean? Like it'd be we're listening to this record and this record. And that's how I still listen to music. I listen to at least one physical record a day, and then on top of like when I'm working my day job, that's not some of my work is guitar lessons, but some of it isn't. And I listen to music while I do that, and it's full records all the time. So that's always where my brain's thinking. And I'm the one who always kind of thinks of track listing. Everyone always has their input too. Like, and you know, we tweak. But I'm the one who kind of brings the broad, like, this is what I'm thinking in terms of track order. For an EP, 3 songs, it's a little easier. We knew that long one, that's going to end the thing. But specifically speaking on the other 2 and why we chose them, the first song, No Monuments, was something that I wrote. And you know, again, the broad strokes of it, and then we tweaked on, you know, each member individually tweaked, and then we came into the studio and they produced us as well. So everyone's kind of got their hand in the pot there. But that song, it just was strong. It was a strong like Cryptodira song. And so we said, you know, we're just going to make the best we can. The Greg and Chris, who produced and recorded the record, really liked it a lot, and they really got the band, and they really get the band. They're who we're going to record the full length with 100%. The next one, and it was just out of all the songs that we had, it was just kind of an obvious choice that ticked a lot of boxes and felt very cohesive. Same River Twice was a more traditional Cryptodira song, and I mean that in the sense of like, for anyone who's not super familiar with the band, like prog metal band that, you know, like we've got heavy parts, we've got clean parts. It's like it's kind of there's a flow to these things. And we've always it always feels like, whether it's purposeful or not, we've tried to almost like do everything that we like to do in one song. And now we're kind of getting out of the habit of that. And Same River Twice is one of the first instances of like, it's a pretty standard heavy song for any other band, but for us it's like relatively experimental because it's short and it's one mode, which is heavy. And that is something that Greg and Chris, they listened to the demo that we had, and it was like a 6-minute song. Oh, this is good. Some of it's okay, and some of it's really good. Why don't we just focus on the really good stuff? You guys like bands like Converge and Trap Them, and those are really the 2 big examples of short, heavy songs. And early Dillinger, stuff like that. They were like, why not just lean into it and write a short, heavy song? Like, this is something that the band likes. Let's delve into this. And so we did. And it was really refreshing working with them because they aren't afraid to, like, especially as you get comfortable with them, and in our experience, they weren't afraid to be like, this part sucks, let's do this over. Like, they weren't like, that's so helpful when someone's producing you. So the fact that they were like, this song's okay, but this part's sick, I'm glad they said it, because someone who's more timid, who didn't want to upset the band, because you never know who you're working with, might have been like, all right, let's just make this 6-minute song cool. And instead we made a less than 2-minute song that I think is awesome. There's always a strange distance between when the music's actually released and like the time you recorded it. And we recorded it last year, over a year ago. And in the instances of the full lengths, I look back on those, even in that time from when it comes out to when we recorded it, and I go, it's pretty good. Like, you know, there's stuff I would have done differently. There's nothing I would have done differently on this EP. And it's the most happy I've ever been with something like that. But, you know, I'm rambling a little bit, but those are the 2 reasons we had those songs. And the order of it made a lot of sense to me. Just like, open with something that feels like a complete. It's not a swing it's not like a swing, and the second song is a swing for us. So more traditional Cryptodira song, big swing that's 2 minutes long and heavy, and with a big song that makes a lot of sense to end with. And that's that. And then on the other side of the EP is two other singles. It's a little less curated, cohesive, but it's more of a bonus track kind of thing. Thinking of my, physical media brain.
Okay, thanks for that. I mean, that's very interesting just to kind of think about it. And also the fact that you kind of thought about it always through the physical lens is also kind of important, because I'm very similar that way. But before we kind of talk more, I think it's time we play a song from the EP. So which one would you like me to play and why?
I think No Monuments, because of what I said, it being kind of it's the best version of a Cryptodira song. And so I'm really proud of it, and I think it's got a really good hook, as well as just really cool textures, and front to back, really love every kind of mode that we do in that.
Awesome. So here it is. Here's No Monuments.
There's no love, there's no love, there's a cell with no windows. A household refusing to split and grow. There's no love here. There is property where there once was a community. There's no love here. Close off, there just be close off waste. There's a cell with no windows. A household refusing to split and grow. Split and grow.
Violent motions, restless child, twice divide. Move through ruptures in life, family lines left behind.
The streets around, visits on every side. Violence and manslaughter, foreclosure regime. There's a cell, village rage. There's a war for content. There's a cell, filled with
And that's No Monuments by Cryptodira of their EP Genesis of Error. And I've got Mike from the band with me. Now, I was holding back while you were talking earlier because I definitely wanted to ask you this question. And since you said your dad had such a huge influence on you, uh, if you could kind of take us back memory lane or just kind of go back, what was that first album? Or, I mean, it can be metal or even non-metal, which kind of you heard from your dad's collection, or you heard it with your dad, where you were like, this is it, like this is what I want to kind of give my life to doing for the rest of my life, or emulating.
So there's a I always have to give a couple answers here because I would say the first record, the monumental first record that is like my dad definitively being like, here is this very important thing, which is music, and there's the way that it is kind of presented to me here. Here's a CD. My first CD, real CD, was something that I mentioned earlier, which is Black Sabbath's Paranoid. And I can't tell you how much I lucked out just in terms of my dad being my dad. So it's a thing where fourth grade, that's when he gives me Paranoid. So I'm 10, I think I'm 10 years old, but it's not immediately that I think, okay, this is what I want to do. That is a couple of years later. And, it's a vehicle. Like, that music is like, I played hockey my whole life growing up too, and that's something that we really share as well. And music became kind of like side by side with hockey. This is something I actually don't talk about often. Like, even me putting it together now, kind of like the introduction of music is the idea of we're taking shots in the basement, on net. Taking shots, skating. We had a rink by us, an outdoor rink that we would skate at, and it was always accompanied with music, and then in the car, and then listening to, and even just relaxing, listening on the stereo, right? So Sabbath's the first, like, where I'm like, heavy music is sick, and I really kind of coincide it with hockey. Sixth grade's when I'm 12 and I really I get my first guitar, and maybe I have a guitar maybe a year before that, but that's when he starts to, he's always been a looking for new music guy. This is something that I also am so grateful to have inherited from him. He was a guy that, like, in his 50s, in his 60s, you meet a lot of people that are older that get stuck in what they listen to. Not him. He was always searching for something new, and whether that was like reading about something in a magazine, going to see the opening bands on tours that, he would go to shows and he'd catch the opening bands and see if they were sick, listening, reading Guitar World or whatever. Or he would even, and this is something that I do too, he would even go into a record store, pick up a CD or a record and be like, this artwork is sick, and he would take a chance on it. And there's so much cool music you can discover just by doing that. A band that I discovered by doing that is this band called Passport, that are just like a jazz fusion band. Some of the coolest artwork I've ever seen in my entire life. It was $5 at a record store in the city, maybe 6-7 years ago. I picked it up. I was like, this is unbelievable. Something I remember my dad doing all the time. So Paranoid's the one in fourth grade, and then in sixth grade, as he's discovering new music, he gets into Dream Theater, Train of Thought specifically, and always a guitar guy first and foremost. He's like, the guitar is unbelievable and it's heavy. And that kind of set me down a rabbit hole where, like, sixth grade, Slipknot wasn't his thing, but I was a young kid. I was 12. Music videos are on TV. Duality is out. Me and, all of my friends thought that was sick. I remember Strapping Young Lad being on TV as well. Love, that song is sick. Stuff like that, right? And then Dream Theater, it's like, what if all that stuff had, like, sick neoclassical kind of proggy, and I had no frame of reference for this stuff really at this point. Some, he likes prog rock and stuff like that, but it's really my introduction to it. And then I go down rabbit holes. Like, Dream Theater is what gets the band together ultimately, and we all went to high school together, other than our new bass player Vin, and so we love Dream Theater. Like, that's immediately something that we like. And then we go down rabbit holes. Like, Opeth is still my favorite band because of Dream Theater. And we would, then discover Meshuggah because of it, Between the Buried and Me because of it. And you go down different rabbit holes. And, some of them he went on, like Porcupine Tree was big with my dad too. Stephen Wilson, Porcupine Tree. So that's, I saw Porcupine Tree with him 2007. So I'm in eighth grade, maybe not, it's sixth, whatever. Either way. So I would say the two big ones, again, I'm making long answers that are short questions, but Sabbath Paranoid in fourth grade. And then I'm going to say Dream Theater's one that kind of puts me on the path that I'm on right now. And the one other one that's hard to not mention is I was always big into AC/DC growing up. Something about Angus, his guitar playing, and they're a band that are like, they get a lot of flack nowadays. They always kind of have, about all the songs sound the same, yeah, this and that. I don't agree with that. I think they're like harder and heavier than so many metal bands. Because of the attitude, like you legitimately hear the attitude come through the guitar playing. It's arguments that I still have with friends to this day about, no, AC/DC are a sick band. They're like one of the all-time sick rock bands. And, they were just a band I latched onto when I was younger. Funny enough, my dad didn't love AC/DC at all. He's like, they're fine. Not really my thing. So, I go into often the different directions as well as him. He likes stuff that I don't. I love stuff that he doesn't. And then we come together on tons. So, yeah, long answer, but that's the answer.
No, that's so beautifully put. And I think like a lot of what we have, what we listen to or what we get introduced to very early, we don't realize the impact it has on us. Like I remember chancing upon my uncle's cassette of Iron Maiden, Best of the Beast, the compilation.
That's awesome.
And I think I was about 7 or 8, and I was
perfect age.
I was like legit freaked out when I saw the album art and Eddie and stuff like that. I wasn't ready for it like 3 or 4 years later. But the album that I actually enjoyed and got into was Guns N' Roses' Use Your Illusion 1.
Oh, cool.
And I'm like almost 32 years later, I'm guessing. Yeah, approximately. I watched Guns N' Roses live with the almost original lineup. So it's like full circle for me, right? In something like that.
Love that kind of stuff. I really do. Who is Richard Fortus still in Guns N' Roses?
No,
the other guitar player?
No,
so
he isn't.
Who's? I used to work at Supro amplifier company, and we made. They invested so much money into making a Richard Fortus signature amp that like never came out, but the engineer got to go to Guns N' Roses rehearsal. This was 6-7 years ago at this point, right? Like, it's 2025, probably 2018, something like that, 2017 even, and maybe even before that. But yeah, that's awesome though. That's sick. How were they?
I don't know. I mean, it's kind of weird because I thought it was only here that they had like an off show, and I thought the sound was a bit strange. But then I've been like listening to, I've been kind of reading some of the interviews that they've been doing. Some of the reviews of shows that they've been doing and stuff. And it's just been a consistent thing where some of the sound and things like that have been a bit like way subdued compared to what you're used to. And like, again, let's be honest, right? The reason everyone says this is because it's Guns N' Roses, right? You want like it loud in your face. I'm sorry, actually, Richard is still there. I don't know why I said.
Oh, it's okay.
He isn't. But yeah, it's weird. Like, I think, I don't know. I mean, like, and this is kind of leading into my next question, right? Is for me, one of the things why I still do the podcast and do all of this stuff is I get to talk to bands, discover new artists and stuff like that. And there's always like, I think depending on the mood or the kind of feeling I have, but there is something about just being like hit in the face with like distortion, growl vocals and things like that. It still like gets me excited. since you kind of talked about your journey with music and, your dad being someone who would go for like not only just like big shows, but also the opening acts.
100%.
What's it like for you? Like, especially with considering you teach guitar and you're like playing in a band and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, yeah, man. Yeah. So I'm a little bit. I've got I've got this thing right where I just truly feel like life is too short and there's too much cool stuff. Like, and I'm just covering the idea in my head of like music, movies, books, like just that broad kind of art. Forget about like everything else that's cool. I know there's a lot of evil in this world too, but like discovering new music is like something that I set out to do every single week. And I do it in a couple of different ways. I try and find new music, like very specific to what has come out this year. And I keep a spreadsheet. I keep my own Oscars and my own Grammys, essentially. And like throughout the year, I kind of nudge things out, nudge things in, but I keep a big list of here's all the releases that I enjoyed. So there's multiple ways that I find out about that stuff, whether it's going to see tours and seeing bands open, word of mouth, hearing it from friends. There's a cool site called recordoftheyear.org that James from Roll Tomasi mentioned to me. I do a podcast called Tidal Wave, which I talk with musicians about their favorite movies, but every year I do a Grammys and an Oscars episode. And so, I've got to keep I keep on top of all of it. Just it's something that I enjoy doing, and I do it with movies too. But so that's one of the ways I discover new music constantly. And then I try and listen to discover older music too. Like I've gotten, I go through little, I don't want to call them phases because all the music that I like stays with me. But I try and discover new genres and new bands and go down different paths all the time. And like I would say since COVID, I've gotten more seriously into jazz, but there's still so much that I have, so much to discover and so much to listen to. But okay, so here's a little project that I'm doing outside of, the 2025 stuff. One day every week, I go through the Impulse Records discography, and I try and go from the beginning. Going from the beginning, I'm probably 15, 16 records in, where I want to, and that's it starts from the 60s, and that's John Coltrane's big. He's the biggest artist on that record label, and it's like I've got this awesome book at a bookstore. Impulse Records, it's like the label that Train built, the label that Coltrane built. And so I'm going through everything and as I listen to it, I just mark what catches my ear and I keep it on a little list and I go back to it. And eventually you listen to it enough, you go, I really like that record or that artist. And so then you try and look for those records in record stores, right? So that's just one example of my little projects of like, trying to keep up with this or discover that. Internet's like blessing and a curse in the sense that I can just listen to all these records willy-nilly and I don't have to be like, all right, now I'm going to buy this Gil Evans record. Because there is a lot of stuff, even just going through those Impulse records where I'm like, I could leave this. Like, this isn't, I listened to it once and it's not sticking with me. But I listen to the next one and I go, this shreds. This is something that is going to stick with me. So that's one way that I'm constantly discovering new music. I love it. There's always going to be something sick, always going to be something new. And people get very jaded on it and they get stuck in what they listen to. But I think it's really good to always try and go outside of that. I also think it's kind of good to listen to stuff that you think you hate once in a while too. Like figure out why you don't like it. And I don't know, it's good to push your comfort zone a little bit. So that's one way that I'm discovering new music. And another is I go to record stores and I'll try and pick up stuff that's like, this artwork's sick. I just did it with a record. We played in Maine and I picked up jazz singer. I have it on my record player right now. Lorez Alexandria. It's just like really cool, like lounge jazz. It's nice. And I'm glad I grabbed it. It was cheap and it's sick. So glad I have it.
So I'm guessing you're a record collector?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, big time. Yeah.
Wow. I recently got into it and I realized how expensive it is also.
Yeah, there's tricks to it, like, getting used stuff. I'm not like and it's tricky when you get into the jazz stuff too, because that's when people can get really insane about pressings and
Oh, really?
oh yeah, man. Like tons of this stuff has been reissued and it's like you can actually get some cool like Coltrane, Miles Davis, Bill Evans, stuff like that for like 20-ish bucks, the reissued stuff. But if you get like an original pressing, it's hundreds of dollars and people get insane about that stuff. But I'm content to have the record. You know what I mean? So I'm going to get it in the cheapest form that sounds good too. I'm not going to get a scratched up version, but and I'm going to garage sales. I'm looking in used. Like it gets expensive if you are like, I mean, it's still expensive because there's still plenty of new stuff that I'd be like, all right, I have to get this, and it's a $40 record. That's just what the price of records are a lot of the time. But sometimes I could get 8 records for $40.
Yeah.
It's tough. Yeah, it's a tough hobby. Again, my dad cursed me with it in a strange way. Blessing and a curse.
Okay, just to kind of wrap up things, right? You talked about like having a ton of music. You actually were looking at some of it earlier today or earlier this week, right?
Yeah.
I know it's a bit early, but what's next for the band?
So what I wanted to, so we're playing a couple shows this month, a couple more shows this month. 3 shows in September, 7-10 shows in October. Kind of going to keep at this pace until we're fishing. We're in the running for some support stuff, and hope to get some cool support stuff next year. But at worst, what I want to do is keep playing 3-10 shows a month, something like that. 3 to 10 shows a month, and writing in the meantime. And I want to just really secure when this next record's getting recorded. And so, like, for me, I'm going to even tonight start looking at more new music, and just like I'm trying to shore up a couple demos so that way we can send them to a label, hopefully get some funding for recording the next record, and kind of focus on that while also like playing shows in the meantime. So that's the plan. Just play as many shows as we can while still focusing on writing and getting ready to record that next record whenever it may be.
Awesome. And for everyone who's still tuned in and listening to the podcast, do you have a message for them?
Well, thanks for listening this long. I hope you enjoyed. I know that you played a track for them, No Monuments, and I hope you enjoyed it. And people always say you got to see the band live, and I think that we're a cool live band. And what I will say is, like, I'm really excited about the evolution of the band. We just got a new bass player, and just some of the stuff we've been writing. Like, I think we're taking a big step. We took a step with DCP, and we're going to take an even bigger step with the next full length. And get on the train early, because I think things could work out for us. I'm hoping they do.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Mike, for taking time out and speaking to me. Wish you guys all
Absolutely.
the best.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
And that was Mike from Cryptodira. I hope you enjoyed my chat with him and also the track that I played from their EP, Genesis of Error. As always, do check the show notes. I'll leave a link to their music. And if you're in the US, do follow them on social media to know when they're playing in the city next to you. That's all from this episode. I've got another episode coming up in a couple of days. It's a returning guest to the podcast, so keep an eye out from that. As always, get in touch with me, trendcrusher@gmail.com, or follow me on social media. Just search for Trendcrusher. I'll see you all very soon. Cheers.